Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Automate with Rakesh, and today in this video we will be learning how do you add new Excel column and write values every hour. So you need to add new Excel columns, right, and write values. So till now I have shown all the different techniques. Okay, using those techniques I am going to build this use case where I am going to add columns dynamically and add values dynamically, right? This is a difficult situation. This appears to be very simple, but again this is a difficult situation. Now here in our case we have the column Bangalore climate at the moment, and the next column that it is going to automatically add is the timestamp, right? What timestamp, and then it is going to capture the temperature, humidity and wind. Again it is going to capture the timestamp for after an hour, and then again it is going to capture the temperature, humidity, wind. Okay, so how this can be done dynamically of adding new Excel columns every hour and adding or writing values under that newly added column every hour, right? How this can be done, let's see. Okay, now for that you need to, first thing you need is you need a lot of patience, because we'll go through a complex scenario, so you need to have a lot of patience. Now let's get started. Okay, but once you learn, there will be an immense benefit. There will be an immense benefit in your projects, I'm telling you. Now let's get started. Now the very first thing, let's use a read, we will use some of the Excel applications activities to read the current Excel, which is currently blank, right? Excel process scope, we'll do it fast, and then we'll use the use Excel file. Okay, and then in the use Excel file I am going to locate that specific file. Okay, done. This much is simple. After that, let's go ahead and drag and drop a read range activity. So simply say read range. This is the modern activity with the Excel symbol. Done. I'm going to read. So what I'm going to read, Excel, and I want to read the entire sheet 1. So I will select sheet 1. Done. Let's create a data table variable dt1, let's say. Alright, so this much is pretty simple. This is quite common in any of your Excel automation, which is quite simple. So data table is created. Okay, now what are the things that we need? The timestamp, right, the temperature value, humidity value. Now for the temperature, humidity and wind I will use a hard coded value. Later we will try to use a variable. So right now what I'm going to do, I'll go to the variable panel. Okay, and I'm going to create some 3 different variables. Let's say ABC, or let's say temperature for T is for the temperature. I'm simply creating just to save some time. Okay, T, and then I'm going to say humidity H variable, and what is the last one? Wind, right? Temperature, humidity, wind, right? Okay, THW. Okay, so here let's say temperature 27 degrees Celsius, humidity, some values I'm entering. Okay, wind, some hard coded values. Later we can customize that to make it dynamic. So let's say wind 10 kilometers per hour. So these are the 3 different values that I have created just to show how dynamically you can enter the values. Okay, that is done. Next thing what we need is a timestamp, right? Timestamps, which should create a column as per the timestamp, at what time you are capturing that value. Now to create a timestamp, all I need is assign activity. Drag and drop the assign activity, and here let's create a variable called timestamp. Okay, this will be a string type variable, and here let's write the syntax. Also in the previous video I have taught this date time. Now if you write, and if you write dot to string, right, dot to string, and in the bracket if you write what, dd, let's say I want it in this format, dd hyphen capital M so dash, and then y space capital HH mm and ss, seconds. Okay, small m is for minutes, big M is for months. Okay, so this is done, and click on OK. So this way it's going to capture the current date time to the timestamp variable. Let's see what was the error. Date time now dot to string. Okay, this has to be in a double quote. This entire format needs to be written in the double quote. So this is clear, right? So timestamp values we have got. Now next thing, every time in the Excel it has to add it to the latest column. So now it has only single column, right? So it should add here. Now after some time it should, after an hour when I run, it should add the column name here, then it should add the column name here, then it should add the column name here. So like like that should happen. So what I need for all of to add a column, all you need is add column, add data column is the activity. Okay, so finally once it is built you will get a complete understanding. Now let's go with the flow. Now add a data column. Okay, now here let's have the dt1. So I have added the data table 1 which we have read, and then the column name will be always the timestamp. So the timestamp will be keep changing. So column name is timestamp. Let me go back to the main. Okay, so now timestamp, so automatically a new column name will, every time it will get created, because it has hour, minute, seconds. So if you run it daily, run it hourly, or run it every minute, it is going to work. Okay, so that thing is done. Now once you add columns, once the columns are added, so this activity is going to add columns, just columns, not values. Remember, the add data column activity in Excel, it's going to add only the columns. So the column name in the timestamp it will appear, but not values. It's not. So writing values is a complex thing. That's what I'm telling you. Writing value is a complex thing. You cannot use a write cell activity and try to write, because it is dynamic in nature. Okay, in this case, so this much is understood, right? Okay, now one more important thing, to write the values. Let's say this is the last column, then under this I should write. So I should be able to detect the last column name. Now to detect the last column name, right, to detect the last column name, so column has been added by this activity. Just below this I am writing. So I'll use another assign activity. The syntaxes are very important, guys. Okay, so here I am creating a variable called last column name. I created a string variable last column name. Now here how do I capture the last? So for that all I have to see data table 1 dot columns I have to write. Okay, data table 1 columns. Now I have to write data table 1 dot columns count minus 1. If I do, what would happen? Now the number of columns. So once the add column activity runs, it is going to add a new column with a timestamp. Just now I showed you, right? Before this we have a add column. So this is going to create a column anyways, and is going to add to the data table. So now there are 2 columns. So how many columns? 2 columns. So if I say dt column count, means it will give the output as 2 minus 1 is equal to 1. So what would happen? So the index number of this become, so index number starts from 0 and this is 1. So the index number of the new column will be count of columns minus 1, which is count of columns will be 2 minus 1 will be 1. So that is the formula that I'm using. So here dt columns count minus 1. So this becomes the so the output will be 1. So dt columns bracket 1 means it is going to pull the column name which is standing in the index number 1. It is going to give that output. So that way always we are going to receive a last column name. Okay, so this one I have clearly explained in a detailed video. In the previous video I have explained in detail. Hope you have gone through that. If not, this explanation should be good. Okay, so this is done. So this is the formula that I have written. Hit on OK. So that way it's going to pull the last column name every time. Okay, we got the last column name. Dynamically it is going to pull that. Okay, now the next thing what we should do is we have to use a for each row in data table, not Excel row. Okay, I'm using a data table because till now whatever is happening, adding the data column, everything is happening in the data table only. So I'm using a for each row in data table. Okay, now here I will go through the data table. So it is going through the, just imagine right now, just imagine that you have already added a column. There is no data inside that. A timestamp has been added. So you are looping through this entire data table. Second column doesn't have any values till now. Okay, now what I will do, I will use let me tell you how this is the complex part. Okay, your right cell won't work because it's a dynamic in nature, so you have to really put a different logic, and this is the cost of the logic. Okay, the building this logic is a cost. Now let me in the sense, it's free for you, you can watch it, but I'm telling you this takes a lot of time to build it, right? It will take a lot of time to build this logic. So here what I'm going to do, I'll use a switch case. You will understand. Okay, this takes a lot of time to build a logic. So time, time is a cost, right? You have to spend a lot of time to build this kind of a logic. Now let's say current row. So now it is going to loop through the data. Now when it loops through the data, what I want, I will say current row. See, this is very, very important. What I'm saying, current row, and let me try to increase the font little bit so that it is easy to view. Okay, so current row dot item. So items means nothing but it's column, current row item, and the column I'm providing the column name. What is the column name that we currently have? Bangalore climate, the primary column which is not going to change, right? This is the primary column for which we need values, right? So this is going to remain the same. So I am going to copy paste the current row dot item Bangalore dot toString. Okay, now if I put this condition, and then in this, because the switch case, ensure the type argument is changed to string. Okay, done. Now if I put this condition, when the loop is running, right, what is the first value? Temperature. When the second time when the loop runs, humidity. Third time when the loop runs, wind. So it is going to pull all the values from this column one by one. So what I'm saying, see, this is where requires a lot of time to build a logic. So this is where I'm saying, if it is temperature, if the first value is temperature, the first value remains temperature, then what you do, then what you do, I am using a assign activity. Okay, then what you do here in the assign activity in the 2, see what I'm writing, this is important. Here again I am saying current row. Okay, current row in the bracket. So we have got the last column name, right, in the last call name variable. So this is holding my last column name. So what is the meaning? If the loop is at the temperature, if it is at here, then what you do, under the last column name you add a value. That is the meaning. And current row dot item, current row dot item you have to write. Okay, this is the syntax to enter a value into a column dynamically. Current row dot item last column name, okay, is the, I'm writing this in the 2, is equals to, I'm going to use the variable. Do you remember initially we have created 3 variables? What are those 3 variables? T means temperature, H means humidity, W means wind, and we have given some temporary values. So all this has an error, right? Why? Because these are all string values and I need to use a double quote. Okay, so fix that. Understood? So now what I am doing, so this logic, so if you understood this logic, how I am doing, so let me explain, this is important. So first of all, it is going through the loop. So when it goes through the loop, just I imagine I'm just entering a time. Okay, for example 0, what is today's date, 16th 06, just to help you imagine, 06 2022 space, what is the time, let's say 1 o'clock, something like that. Okay, 1:30. Okay, so I have entered the time column name, okay, manually. Now what this will do, now look at the flow. What is doing, it is adding a column name. So let's say it has added a timestamp. Okay, and then here it is finding the last column name. So it is telling the last column name is this. So it got 2 values. It has added a column name, it got the last column name also. Okay, so once it got the last column name, because it is dynamic in nature, right? It is dynamic in nature. So this is the last column name. This is one way. or else we can also use this timestamp variable, which is also a last column name, right? Whatever the timestamp is currently, that is also last column name, that can be used. But again, there could be certain changes in the Excel, right? Once it enters the data, it'll convert into a different format or so. So this would be ideally a good way, suggested way. Okay, so I got the last column name. So once I got the last column name, what I'm trying to do here, I'm using a for each row. I'm using a for each row, and here the for each loop is going to run. Now this column doesn't have data, but this column has data. Okay, so when the first loop runs, what are the values? Temperature and blank data. These are the two values, right? When the second time it runs, humidity and blank value. Third time wind and third value. So what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to use this as a reference. The column A, I'm using this as a reference. So I'm saying within the for each loop, I'm using a switch activity with a expression. You know, it'll kind of if condition, which is kind of a if condition, right? If current row item Bangalore climate is temperature. So first time when it runs, it will be temperature only, right? The Bangalore climate A column value will be temperature. If it is temperature, then beside that you write a value. So beside that you write a value. For that, what is the syntax? I'm using the syntax current row item last column name, and then I'm saying T. So current row dot item last column name means it is going to write the value directly here. So I'm not using a write cell activity. This is the way you dynamically write into a cell. Okay, dynamic cell. Okay, so I'm going to execute that and show you. Okay, this is done, and copy, add a new case, what is that? Next is humidity, right? Next data will be humidity. So I'll say humidity, done. And what is the third case? Wind, copy, and I'll put it as wind. And right, and I'm going to copy the same syntax, just I am going to change the values of T to H, right? So I'll go to humidity, paste, and I'm going to change this to H, so it will write the humidity value. If it is wind, I'll copy paste, and I'm going to write W, so it is going to write the wind value. So they are now hard coded. Later we can make them dynamic. Okay, so everything has been pasted properly, right? H, T, and wind. Okay, done. Now let's save it. So till now, guys, the values are still holding inside the data1 variable. We did not write it to Excel, right? So I need to write it to Excel. Now to write it to Excel, I'll use a write range activity or write to Excel activity. So I will say write data table to Excel. Okay, this is the activity I'll be using to write these dynamic column and dynamic values to the Excel. Okay, so below, anywhere below the for each loop I'm writing. Okay, so I'm writing below the for each loop. Okay, now this should be very clear, okay, where you are adding the new activity, because there are multiple layers of boxes, so it should be very clear. Now what to write? I want to write dt1, write nothing, dt1. Your destination, right? Where would you like to write that? Right, so I can leave it blank, or else I think let's keep it sheet 1. Okay, sheet 1. Okay, so data table in sheet 1 I want to write. Now let's execute this and see how this one is running. If there is any kind of error, we will correct that. Okay, so the execution has started on my taskbar. Wow, did you see it has written all the values, okay, with the 1342 39 timestamp. These are all hard coded values, but again this can be customized. Getting it? Now let me run it once again. Run file. So now you can, wow, so you can see how nicely it is working, and dynamically it is entering the values. Okay, 1343 27 19 10. Okay, this is all done. So this is understood. Now one more, only the last question is, how can I make this dynamic? I'm going to have a use case on climate data monitoring solution. In that video I'm going to anyway show that how do you completely make it dynamic in the next video, but the logic should be very clear to build that use case. Okay, so I hope in this video I have made the logic pretty clear and how things are working. So thank you guys for watching this video. We are going to meet once again in our next video, and I always request all my viewers to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon, because we put a lot of efforts to bring something out as a content which we think would add values to people. So stay connected with us. Please do subscribe and hit on the bell icon, so any new things that comes, you should be get notified and you should be able to take benefit of those videos. Thank you guys. So please do subscribe and hit on the bell icon. We are going to meet once again in our next video. Take care. Bye bye.